Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out why I feel more free in Britain than in America.
In the UK, I can cross the road wherever I want to cross the road. I can look to see if there's traffic with my own eyes, and I can just decide to walk across that road with no fear of a fine or a ticket or getting in trouble. Which sounds more free to you?
What about getting hit by a car? Or a truck?
Hi and welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. Today I am discussing all the ways in which I feel more free in the UK than in the USA. And this is a funny topic, I suppose, because America associates itself with freedom and the fact that Americans are free. But I was thinking about whether I would want to move back to America, and it has changed at various points in my life here.
Y'all, be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe.
If you don't know, I am a dual UK and US citizen, so technically I could live in either country, and
Nice.
I have chosen for multiple reasons, but some of these in this video to be in the UK. When I think about moving to America, there are some things that come up that I'm not entirely sure I could deal with, and that made me realize that actually my life here in the UK seems more free than it would be in the USA. So let's get started. Number one, and this is probably the biggest way in which I feel I have more freedom here in the UK, has to do with healthcare. Now, the reason I was thinking about this is not just the fact that I can go to the doctor here and not pay anything, or have a surgery and not pay anything. It's also to do with the fact that I am self-employed. And so if you're self-employed in a place like the UK that has a nationalized healthcare system, it means that you don't have to factor this in to your job or what it means if you lose a job or gain a job or anything like that. And if you're British, you're probably a little bit confused if you're not familiar with how it works in the US. So in the US, having health insurance is essentially mandatory to be able to go to the doctor, to get surgeries, like to get help. If you don't have anything at all, technically you can still get emergency help, but it's a whole big thing.
It's expensive? Yeah, you don't have to have it to go to the hospital, but it's going to be really expensive. You might go bankrupt.
In general, you need health insurance. Typically, health insurance is going to be attached to a job, but it's going to be attached to a salaried job, and it's considered part of the perks of the job. So people in the US who are self-employed or freelancers or not in a traditional 9-to-5 salaried position still need health insurance, but it doesn't come with your job as a perk. So you then have to source that health insurance for yourself, pay the monthly fees, which can be extortionate. So we're not talking like $50 a month here. We're talking at least in the multiple hundreds per month in order to have health insurance in case you have any sort of medical need.
Mine's about $400 a month.
So if I were to move to the US right now, I would feel a lot less free financially because I would have to be paying, again, extortionate amounts for health insurance every month. And I might not even have the freedom to be self-employed in the US because of how much extra that adds on per month and per year to your costs.
Yeah, y'all, I have avoided going to the hospital because I've thought about how much it would cost. Even if you have health insurance, you still have to pay something. I don't feel free when it comes to that. It also locks people into jobs that they hate. So Americans tend to think that they're more free if the government's not organizing something for them, but somebody else is doing it. There's an insurance company organizing your health care for you. You're not free from them, you know?
And again, after you have the health insurance in America, you still often have what we call a copay, which is the money you still need to pay towards the doctor's appointment or towards the surgery or towards the hospital visit or whatever it is. So let's say that your insurance does cover your doctor, you might still have a $50 copay, which means that you still need to pay out of pocket $50 every time you have a doctor's appointment. And yes, the insurance will cover the rest, but you're still paying out of pocket. Here in the UK, if I have any sort of issue that I need to see a doctor for, I don't worry about budgeting for it. I'm just able to go. And in that way, I think that I get much better healthcare here in the UK because I'm not worried about the financial aspect of it. I don't second guess whether I really need to be seen or can just like fix myself on WebMD because it doesn't cost me money at the point of interaction here in the UK. Yes, you pay through it through your taxes, you pay through it in other ways. Everybody always says the NHS isn't free. It's not free overall, but it is free to each individual at the point of interaction. So it's much different to the American system, which is not free at any point, and even if you have health insurance, you are often still paying out of pocket.
That I've talked about health insurance in the UK versus USA many times on this channel, and it makes me so sad. People go bankrupt because they get sick, or people die because they can't pay for something. A lot of people will avoid going to the doctor. I'm just repeating myself. I actually need to go to the doctor. That's why it's hitting home. I don't like thinking about this, so I'm just gonna move on. What's next?
The next thing on my list, and this is much more trivial, but it does have to do with the public access to land here in the UK. Watch my countryside video that I posted recently if you haven't seen that, where I talk about the public access to footpaths here in the UK, meaning that you can essentially roam or walk through privately owned land a lot of times because you have right of way as the public on a footpath. In America, it is not like this at all. Private land is basically private land.
Yeah,
and you
no
can go
trespassing.
to, of course, a park or a national park or something like that, but you can't usually just leave your house or pick a particular spot and keep wandering for a long time. It's a much more private system that has no public access or right of way in that sense. So I feel like I can move a little bit more freely in the UK when it comes to walking.
I didn't know about that. Right of way? Right of way. In England and Wales, excluding the 12 inner London boroughs in the City of London, the right of way is a legally protected right of the public to pass and repass on specific paths. And in addition, there's a general presumption of access to the countryside, right to roam. Yeah? And you know what's crazy is, people have gotten shot from wandering onto private land. I think just a few years ago there was a woman who drove up into some guy's driveway because she was delivering food and she came to the wrong address, and the guy shot her in her car. What's the third thing?
My third reason that I feel more free in the UK than in the USA is public transportation. So America, for the most part, is run on cars. Now, a lot of the UK is also run on cars. If you go to Cornwall, you're probably going to want a car. There are buses, but a car is going to get you places much faster. However, the vast majority of the UK is really well connected by trains, by buses, and by other forms of transportation than a car. So it means here, I have more options. Maybe I still do want to take a car into the countryside, but if I didn't have one, I could check out the local buses, I could check out the trains. The train system in the UK can get you very, very far and to tons of different places. As you saw in my Great Missenden video the other day, I can go to this countryside feeling village 40 minutes on the train from London, no car necessary.
Nice. Yeah, we do have public transportation in the city, but to go from one city to another may or may not have a train. You might be able to hop on a train and hitchhike like an old hobo. We do have buses that go all over the country, but it's not like a common thing that people do. I would say, though, I'm not pushing back on this, but I would say, though, the reason for that is probably because the United States is so gigantic. To have the level of public transport that the UK does would be not profitable. It would bankrupt us. Maybe. I don't know for sure, but it would be very expensive. Like if I want to go to Needles, is there a train to Needles? That's the most remote place I can think of. It's out in the Mojave Desert. Show it on a map. See over here? It's on the California-Arizona border. Can I take a train there? Wait, there is a train there. Oh, okay. See? It's a 6-hour train ride, but I guess I could do it. Let me find somewhere else. More remote. Montana. What if I want to go to Malta, Montana? Can I take a train? Okay, I guess I could take a train and then a Greyhound bus. Oh my god, it would take a day. It would take 2 days. But I guess I could do it. I could buy a bus ticket and go to Malta, Montana. 2-day bus drive. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's an entirely different experience than in the UK.
The next thing on my list, and this doesn't really apply to me because I don't really drink, but if we're putting this list together for your average American versus British life, in the UK, the drinking age is 18. Whereas in America, it is 21.
Yeah.
So in that way, the UK seems more free and at an earlier age. The next thing on my list, again, has to do with...
Okay. Yeah, I guess that is technically more free. You're free to drink.
The next thing on my list, again, has to do with my employment. And this really, as I've mentioned, is what has gotten me thinking about this subject. And this is to do with employment rights and paid leave. So when you talk about freedom, in the UK, if I were to work a traditional 9-to-5 salaried position, I would be guaranteed by the government 28 paid days of annual leave per year. In the US, if I were in the same exact position, a salaried 9-to-5 job, there are no federal government requirements for how many days I could have off. That again is seen as like a perk of the job. So you hope to pick a job that offers you enough leave or enough days off, or vacation days as we call it in America. But there is no federal mandate for how many days this has to be. It could be 0. And even when you do tend to get vacation days included in your job in America, it usually is much less than in the UK, which is why in the UK and in Europe, actually, people tend to think of like the summer holidays or the winter holidays or whatever it is, as people can take multiple week trips sometimes. But in my experience, Americans almost never have that 28 days off per year, or even more in some other European countries. They're going to have fewer days. And so their trips need to be a bit shorter, maybe 5 days, maybe 7 days at a max. Taking a like 2 or 3 week trip, as people can often do in the UK or in Europe, is definitely not something that happens that much.
No.
So I think
you could not do that. Maybe 1 week. Maybe. What is our parental leave? Women in the UK are currently entitled to 52 weeks of statutory leave, whereas Estonia offers 62 weeks, Croatia and Bulgaria offer 58. The US remains at the bottom of the list for maternity leave benefits, with 0 weeks of guaranteed leave for new working mums. 0 weeks. Wow. Free to have a baby. Take a year off. Awesome.
the next thing on my list is the lower higher education fees here in the UK, which I can personally attest to because I did do my full master's degree here in the UK, so I know how much it costs here, even as an international student, versus how much doing a master's degree would cost in the USA. I've mentioned this in my video about things that are cheaper in the UK than in the USA, but higher education is definitely one of those. So when you compare the costs here in the UK to the $50,000, $60,000 per year cost for some universities in the US, I mean, which one seems more doable to you? Which one seems like that country has more freedom? I don't know. There's a lot of good things about America, but the more I make this list, I'm like, there's a lot of ways in which there is so much more freedom here in the UK that maybe people don't realize. And of course,
So how much is a year of tuition? Okay. Average annual fees vary from £7,500 to £54,500. Okay. That's not as different as I thought. It's crazy that the price of tuition keeps going up, but the value of it in terms of getting a job from it keeps going down.
And of course, the most obvious one, I have left it to this point on the list, has to do with firearms. So yes, there is crime in the UK. Yes, there is an increase in different types of crimes in different cities. It's nothing compared to how you feel in America at all times, knowing that firearms are allowed to be held by your average citizen. And what I will say is that when you live in America for long periods of time or you grow up there, this is a fact of life you have to get used to. So do you necessarily go around fearing this all of the time? Not necessarily, because you do have to become kind of immune to that fear in order to live your life. But now that I've lived in the UK and I can go to the movie theater, I can go to the mall, I can go to a restaurant without fearing some sort of gun violence incident. When I go back to the US now, I am very aware. So if I go to like a crowded movie theater or a crowded mall, I do look around and I think of what could potentially happen. And this wasn't a way that I thought when I lived in America, as I said, so you do have to become immune to it a little bit. But now that I've experienced a place where that fear is not always present, it doesn't make sense to me to go back to that fear, and it doesn't make me feel more free to think of a life in America where I would have to be, or feel like I would have to second guess the places I would go and how crowded they are and who might have access to them.
Yeah, I bet a lot of Americans would say, well, we're more free as far as that goes because we are free to carry a gun. But it really is, I would prefer to be free of that fear that people around me are carrying guns or there's mentally unstable people with guns. She's right, I don't really think about it that much anymore. I mean, whenever I go to a crowded place, it crosses my mind. But if I walked around in fear of it all the time, I would not leave the house, you know?
And to counter that, another trivial one is jaywalking. So in America, there are lots of laws in different states that you cannot simply cross the road wherever you would like to cross the road. Well, by law, you have to cross the road at a dedicated crossing. And if you don't, you could run the risk of getting yourself a ticket or some sort of fine. You're likely not going to be put in jail for jaywalking, but it's still something that is codified as not legal. So again, you're looking at some sort of punishment or at least a slap on the wrist from a police officer. In the UK, I can cross the road wherever I want to cross the road. I can look to see if there's traffic with my own eyes, and I can just decide to walk across that road with no fear of a fine or a ticket or getting in trouble. Which sounds more free to you?
I mean, yeah, but you're free to get hit by a car. I jaywalk every once in a while, and I've never had a ticket. I've never had any problems with it. I don't even know anyone who's gotten a ticket or anything from jaywalking. I'm sure it happens, but I don't know anybody that it's happened to. And in cities like New York or Los Angeles, the cops have bigger things to worry about than jaywalking, and they're not gonna ticket you. You can pretty much go wherever you want, walk across the street wherever you want. But it really is for your own safety, you know? You don't want to walk into traffic.
And finally, the last thing on my list, and this is an interesting one. We might do a religion in the UK versus the USA video at some point in time, but it's a little bit of a nuanced topic because we'll take England as an example. England has an official religion, the Church of England. Okay. America doesn't have an official religion. However, Americans tend to be more religious. So again, there's layers to this topic. However, when it comes to people in power, in the UK, I feel like there is much more of a freedom of becoming somebody in power, whether that's at a more local level or a national level, regardless of your religion. The current leader of the Labour Party who are in power is an atheist. Rishi Sunak is a Hindu. It doesn't necessarily play into people's minds what somebody's personal, private religious beliefs are when it comes to their ability to lead. You might have problems with people based on a number of other reasons, but typically religion, again, is seen as private, and in some ways that gives more freedom for people of all different religions to achieve lots of different things and hold this position of power. In America, it can tend to be more difficult for someone to be in a position of power without being a part of the majority religion, which is Christianity. So it doesn't always come into play. I'm not saying that it's never happened. People do have different religious beliefs and have held office, but people do think about it more. They do question it more. And there has currently been no president that has declared themselves as an atheist or not having a religion, and to me,
True.
that would seem like something that would not be possible right now in America.
Yeah, I think, well, we do have some Jewish senators and Congress people, and I think a couple of Muslims, but majority is Christian for sure. So in Congress, currently, it's 87.8% Christian, 6.2% Jewish, 0.4% Buddhist, 0.6% Muslim, 0.4% Hindu, 0.6% Unitarian Universalist, I don't know what that is, 0.2% Humanist, 0.2% Unaffiliated, 0 something else, 3.7% don't know or refuse to answer. Yeah. So technically, no, but really, yeah, she's right.
Okay, that brings me to the end of this video. There are lots of positive things about America. I do miss it. I do miss things about it, but I was thinking about what I would have to give up in order to move back there, and it's definitely not something that I would currently want to do for all the reasons listed. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Y'all be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. Yeah, Americans like to pride ourselves on being free, but in a lot of ways we're not. I think that all just stems from the idea that we're free from a monarchy, and it's not based in nepotism, although it sort of is. It's strange, the health insurance thing. I think there are still a lot of Americans who would see the system we have as being more free because it's more privatized and it's free from the government more, and in an American's eyes, that's freedom. Having a government control your healthcare or organize your healthcare is considered not free. We're more free to hurt ourselves, like the guns. Anyway, this was an interesting video. Be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. And if you made it this far in the video, give me a like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.